Hey everybody, it's Julie again. Today I'm going to do a quick video for you with 10 tips on how to get started on writing or how to get started on writing again if you're stuck. I hear this a lot from people who they get to a point in their writing where they don't know what to do next, or they might have writer's block, or they might need some ideas of like, how can I just make myself get going or get back to a project that I'm doing. And here are 10 things that I've heard that either help me or help other people in that situation. Number one is filling out character sheets, or if you are artistically inclined, maybe try drawing the characters. Sometimes people feel a little bit intimidated by the idea of diving back into a story after a long break or starting a new story, and they just aren't really up to turning out words, but they can sometimes ease back into the story a little bit by getting in touch with those characters. Maybe if you fill out a sheet of attributes about your character, you can start to explore aspects of those characters that you may not have been aware of before, and you may be inspired to maybe write a scene or get back into where you get to interact with these characters and see them on paper again. Number two, try plotting or outlining. This can be really helpful for the type of writer who does like to have some kind of architecture in place before they start writing. And you can feel like, hey, I'm working on my story, even if you're not actually getting words down in the story. But this kind of architecture for a story can really help you move forward at a better pace later. And it's especially helpful for people who maybe you're stuck and you don't see where it's going. It can help you pull out and see the big picture so that you can get words at a later date. 3, write something unrelated about your characters that isn't necessarily part of the story. Sometimes this helps take the pressure off. You can write about your characters on a date, or having a dream, or what they think about in the shower, or what they would order in a restaurant, or maybe something like how their parents decided what they were going to name them. You can do things like this to help you get back in touch with characters you may have left alone for a while, and you can also benefit from pulling back from the story and maybe just easing yourself into the world again and getting to see those characters play around on the paper in a low-pressure situation. Number 4, if you're the type of writer that would respond to things like this, reward yourself at milestones. You can set certain word count goals, or finish this chapter goals, or page goals, however works best for you, and then reward yourself with something like getting to go out, or getting to play a game, or getting to have your favorite food, something like that. And then you'll have this positive reinforcement and also an incentive to not slow down. So just make sure also that you don't limit yourself by these. Don't say, okay, well, now that I've hit the 2,000 words that I wanted to write today, I'm just not going to write anymore. Like, once you get there, if you do feel like continuing, go ahead and do it while you're on a roll. But sometimes, especially when you're going through rough patches, this sort of incentive behavior can really help you. Number 5, very similar to number 4, is sprinting with friends. You may have heard of this. Some people do it on Twitter, where they'll get 2 or 3 of their writer friends and they'll all write at the same time for 30 minutes or an hour, and then when they get back to check in with each other, they find out how many words they each wrote and congratulate each other. Sometimes making writing a more social activity does motivate certain types of writers who really feed off of that feeling of somebody's waiting to find out how you did. So you can try something like that, try sprints. Number 6, slightly more delayed gratification would be posting a weekly blog entry to tell people how you're doing. I actually do this one, and it's not really so much a motivating factor for my writing as it is just a way of keeping people in touch with that I'm writing this book and how it's going, and an opportunity for me to reflect on how I'm doing with this story. But it can definitely be a motivating factor too if you feel like once a week you have to check in and you have to admit how much or how little you did, and hopefully it doesn't go over the line into like, oh, I have to shame myself if I don't write any words or I don't write enough words that week. But it can be a nice motivating factor to have this feeling like people are waiting to find out how well you did that week, but it's not an immediate thing. Number 7, I suggest reading. This might sound like a distraction, but sometimes it can really help people to, pull themselves out of the active craft aspect of writing and into the appreciation aspect. Sometimes the writers that we've loved for a long time and find inspirational can remind us why we write and keep us on track. And if you also happen to have like writing buddies that are sending you their manuscripts, sometimes you can read those and get yourself into a sort of a craft frame of mind while you're helping other people hone their books. So I suggest reading. That can sometimes be a lot more helpful than a lot of people think. Number 8, try rereading your project. If you're halfway through a project and you stalled, try going back to the beginning or back to one of your favorite chapters and reread it, reconnect with it, and maybe fiddle with it a little bit, edit it if you are so inclined, but sometimes rereading what you've already got down can inspire you to continue where you left off. Number 9, try changing format. If you're working on a novel, try taking a break from that and working on a short story or a poem or a nonfiction piece. Try working on something else that'll get your juices flowing. And this can be more helpful than a lot of people give it credit for. Sometimes you really do get into a rut and you can only think about this one thing and you're ending up feeling like every word you drag out is painful. But sometimes it really does help revitalize you if you just take a break and write something else. And that way you also feel a little less unproductive because you're creating something else, even if it is unrelated. So I suggest, if you're working on a book, write a short story, try it out. And number 10, if you're comfortable with this sort of thing, start sharing your chapters with a critique partner as you go. Some people are really well motivated by this sort of thing, thinking that someone else is waiting to see the next installment. It's kind of like maybe reading issues of a comic book that come out once a month. It's that kind of feeling, like, oh, you're waiting for the next piece to happen. And sometimes their enthusiasm can get you going so that you'll be more inclined to continue with the story because you know that someone is immediately waiting for it. Some people are not comfortable with that sort of thing. I never do that. I don't like to show people my work as it's in progress, but there are a lot of people who feel like, you know, they have these non-judgmental critique partners that they can share raw work with just for the process part of getting it out. And sometimes they have a mutual relationship like that, and sometimes it's just one of them sharing with the other as they go, but you're going to have to find your own balance for that. I hope these tips have been helpful for some of you who struggle with this sort of thing, and if you're a writer who has a tip that I didn't go over here that you want to share in the comments, go for it, and maybe you can help some of your fellow writers. And until next time, thanks for watching.